Hi everyone, my name is Martin and welcome to another great edition of MP Astro. Now, I've had one of those frustrating months where I've not had any clear skies whatsoever. Well, the weather's been really bad and I must admit I only managed to get one astro imaging session, and that was like last week ago. Only one night of clear spells, and even that I had the moon as well, just ruining the shot as well in the process. So with times like these where you're not being able to astro image or observe the night sky, take this opportunity to utilize that time during the bad weather and look for some like awesome ideas and projects you can do to make astrophotography easier for you. So there is one problem I had, and I'm going to show you this problem I've got. So then guys and girls, this is the problem I've got. As you see, I've got a huge shelf full of telescopes, cameras, equipment that I use for astrophotography and observing the night sky. As you can see, I've got a variety of telescopes all on that shelf. Now, ideally, I like to have telescopes, heavy telescopes, at the bottom of the shelf. The lighter stuff will be further up the shelving, but again, it really is up to you. But the biggest problem I have, right, is when I want to take out a telescope that I want to use for imaging, the biggest problem I face is I've got this 8-inch Skywatcher Quattro, which is a great imaging Newtonian reflector. Now this is the heaviest telescope I've got, considering that I've got a lot of equipment. I've got cameras on there, I've got coma correctors, I've got my guide scope, the Pegasus Astro set up as well. Everything's all rigged up in a one piece. Now the biggest problem I have is when I go over here, I've got to try and drag this telescope out of that shelf, and sometimes it is back-breaking stuff, and I'll show you what I mean. And as I drag this telescope out, I do have carry handles that I can lift it, alright, but sometimes if you haven't got that, I found the easiest way is to take off the dust cap, put your hands in there, be careful, and then lift it out in a wanna. And as you can see, it is heavy. So I've got a lot of weight there. I reckon it's about a good 14-15 kilograms, which doesn't sound a lot, but because the bulkiness of this Newtonian reflector, it really is quite bulky and cumbersome. So I put carrying handles. Again, the carrying handles that I featured on my Dobsonian, the 250p that I showed you, and I did a video. Again, check out that video at the top, and I actually introduced some lifting carrying handles. So I've fitted those Rolson lifting carrying handle straps, and it does make it easier. But as you lift it out, yes, it's a lot more controlled, but you're dragging the telescope and the guide scope with it, and yeah, I'm actually damaging the actual shelving doing it. So the biggest problem with that is also if you knock the guide scope or you knock any cameras and all that, you know, it's not ideal. So this gives me an idea to make something to make it easier for me. Plus, I want something that it's going to be very practical, cheap to make, and above all, it's going to help you guys and girls out as well. So if you've got a shelving like this and you've got the same problem, maybe this project might actually help you. So again, I need to make something to make it easier for myself. And again, like I always say, this is the telescope you use the most is the one that's the easiest to use. All right, so sometimes being a lightweight telescope also makes it more practical. This is not a lightweight telescope, believe me. The 8-inch Quattro is quite heavy, so I've got everything on there, and even this is even this telescope setup is quite a bit of weight to lug around. So that is the purpose of this video, as I'm going to make this this project. So I'm going to make something that will make it easier to gain access to my telescope, particularly the 8-inch Quattro. So before we start the video, please hit a like button, and again, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe onto my channel. Also share this video out. Maybe this idea might actually help many others who's got a similar problem as what I've got. Also, don't forget to hit the bell. By hitting that bell will keep you notified for any new videos that I publish out very, very soon. So to that on, if you're interested on what I'm going to do on this project, please keep watching and let's do this. So for this project, I got a decent plywood board, and with this plywood board, this is 800 millimeters in length or 80 centimeters and 400 in width or 40 centimeters, and the actual plywood itself is 18 millimeter thick. You can use thicker, it really is up to you. You can use it, you can make this board out of MDF, it really is up to you. However, for me, I'm going to use some cheap plywood, but good quality plywood. Alright, very stable. I would recommend using 18 millimeters or more because with this telescope it needs to be quite stable. So don't use anything less than 18 millimeters. Alright, so good 18 millimeters or more is probably best for this project. So get yourself a decent size board. Now this just depends on your shelving. Alright, some shelvings might be a bit bigger, so measure your shelving first before you get the right size. Now for this shelving, this fits perfectly as I slide this board in there. All right, so just measure up your shelf first before you buy. So what I've got here is I've got a 2 foot by 1 foot wide plywood, and this is quite a thick plywood, round about 26 millimeter thick. Okay, so really heavy duty plywood. You don't really need it as that thick. You can do away with 18 millimeter, depends on the thickness. So as you can see here, what I have done, you can see some dimensions that I've already made. So if we take a closer look, what I've done here is I've measured the dimensions. Now as you can see here, we've got 150 millimeters across to this line here. Okay, now this width is round about a foot or 30 centimeters. Okay, so what I've done here, I measured 150 millimeters that way, and what I've got is I've made some half moons. Now here what I've done is I've used my existing dust cover for my Quattro 8-inch. I've taken off the cap so it fits flush, and what I've done is I've lined it up along to the most centrally across. I drew all the way around the dust cover, okay, and it gives me exactly 230 millimeters all the way across from there. Okay, so it gives me a good 30 millimeter of a gap to step up, so I've measured it across from there, and it's 150 millimeters all the way up to here. I've also what you can see here, you got 36 millimeters either side. Now this is not quite 1 foot, this is cut pretty much inaccurate, but doesn't worry about it. Depends on the material you're going to use, but I've got 36mm either side. Okay, I've also done the exact same dimensions on the other side, and again using the dust cover, and again move it across, get it central, measure it across to get exactly what you want. You should have 2 individual pieces, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut these out. So after a lot of sewing, I've used a jigsaw to cut out these parts. All right, I've got 2 half moons. All right, one for the front and one for the back, and as you can see, I've just sanded them down, all right, to make them nice and smooth. Okay, but as you can see there, if you're careful, all right, you can get really good nice patterns with this material. So the plywood is pretty good. All right, it enables you to cut all the way around quite effortlessly. So you should have 2 moons, or 2 half moons I call them, of these brackets. So as you can see, we've positioned the half moons and we've placed the telescope on top, and as you can see here, I've marked out the position where my optical tube is going to sit. So bear in mind, you've got your dovetail, you've lost Mandy dovetail or Vixen dovetail, whatever you've got. Think about where the focus is going to be, all right, and where the back end is going to be as well. And the easiest solution is to place the half moons on there, and then you have to just move the telescope back and forth while it's on there. Because these are thick wood, it's quite stable, so you can slide these back and forth, get it central onto the main board. So as you can see here, what I've done is I've got it 30 or 50 millimeters at either side, okay, and it's sort of center. You may have to readjust yours, it doesn't really matter. But what I've done is, once I've got it in a perfect spot, I then mark out the position all the way around, so I know my half moon brackets are in that position. Okay, so once you've got the ideal position of your board, okay, you just mark it out all the way around, all right, so you know where those half moons are going to sit. So as you can see there, it's almost finished and it looks professional already. The good advantage of this is it sits nice and flush. I've got a bit of a gap, all right, but that'll be self-explanatory later on. But as you see, the optical tube is a lot more secure. So as you can see, after you've lined up your telescope, all right, and you marked out the whole position where the half moons are going to sit. So as you can see there, all right, these will fit bang on where I want the half moons to be, all right, these half moon brackets. So that is the position of my setup, all right. This really does depend on your setup, all right. So what I would suggest is, did what I did before, get these brackets aligned up, put the telescope on there, and then just reposition how you want it, all right. It doesn't matter if you have them on the edge or at the rear, it really does depend, but for me, I had these central, okay. And as you can see here, I have drawn out a center line across, and here in each center line I marked out points, 3 positions there, all right. So I've got 30 millimeters or 3 centimeters from there and from there, and 150 millimeters, which is bang on there, okay, at the center. So as you can see there, what the purpose of these center lines are for is to enable me if you get yourself 6 dowels, as you can see here, I've got 6 wooden dowels. These are 6mm thick. You can use bigger ones if you wish. Personally, I just use the 6mm, and these will be positioned on there like so. All right. Again, you don't have to do this. You can just use screwdriver. You can just use screws and just screw them in like so. But for me, I'm just going to use some dowels, right? And because it'll be cheaper in the long run. So now, as you can see, I've drilled 8mm holes along those center points there. Now, as you can see, I decided to use 8mm dowels instead of 6mm because I think 6mm is a bit on the small side. So as you can see, what I found was to install these 8mm dowels, and as you can see there, I've got all 3 lined up like that. All right, very simple to install. All right, what I found easy is to get it all lined up is drill a small hole at the middle first, a very small 2mm. Drill a small 2mm hole, and then use a wood screw or a countersunk screw to screw from the bottom, and then just screw onto there where this bracket is lined up, and it gives you a center mark here. And what that does is, once you put the countersunk screw, as you screw it into, it will temporarily hold the half moon cradle in its place, so that it allows you to then drill the other 2 holes either side to then mark exactly where you position for your dowels. Okay, doesn't matter if you're slightly misaligned, as long as your cradle lines up with these markings, you should be good to go. And it really is that easy. You just drill a little bit in. All right, you don't need to drill all the way through. All right, and you just tap them in at least with a good 20, maybe 50mm sticking out at each end. All right, and that gives you those dowels installed. And again, these dowels, 8mm, that's all you need to do is drill them out 8mm, right, and they just slot right in there. All right, it's really easy to install. So now what we're going to do is, now we've got the dowels in there, we're going to use some wood glue, and with this wood glue we're going to glue in the dowels itself like so. All right, and again, you just put a nice smidgen of glue, worked perfectly. But don't worry, we're just going to put some glue in there. All right, you're going to smear the glue all the way across here like so. All right, and I'll get back to you. So as you can see, we've just glued the cradles in. Okay, so those half moon cradles, the glue is still wet, so this is a good time to grab the telescope and let the weight of the telescope put pressure, constant pressure on the base. Okay, so what that does is it will give the glue a chance to hold in there, plus you can just readjust the position, all right, in place to make sure that all the dowels are all properly pushed in and the cradle's permanently fixed. Again, don't apply pressure on the main tube, just push down on the cradles itself. Okay, just the cradles. All right, just making sure that the glue bonds onto the wood properly. So as you can see here, I have almost finished my telescope support now. So what I've done is I've used the Woodstain and varnished it. Also, I've stuck on some self-adhesive green felt around the support brackets. So as you can see there, it looks really good, really good. And the next bit is I'm going to flip it round, and what I've done, I marked out a few holes on there, and with these holes lined up I've got these legs. Now these are 10 centimeter legs, and the good thing is they're made out of solid steel, very sturdy, and they have a quick release which you can fold them in and out. Now unfortunately they're a bit on the big side, so I had to angle grind them off down to the correct height, and then the height for my shelving is around about 10 centimeters, so I had to cut them down pretty short. All right, again, this depends on your design. All right, your shelving might be different, but this is only suitable if you're using this shelf on the lowest part of the shelving. With these legs now cut down to 10 centimeters, they're the correct height, and you can still fold them in and fold them out, okay, but this will become apparent later in the video. So these are quite cheap, and they do come a set of 4, so you get 4 of these. You just have to cut these down and put on the protective pads, you know, afterwards. So now we've screwed these collapsible legs, and as you can see here, you press these push buttons in and they just clip in like so, and when you want to extend them out, all you do is just flip them out and they lock in place like that. So pretty smart, these collapsible legs. Again, depends on your design. I decided to go for 2 of these. You can have all 4 mounted if you want. So what I've done here is I've stuck on these 3-inch Teflon strip pads. Now these provide anti-friction, and it will stop any wear marks onto the wood itself. So these will protect the wood. You notice I've only wood stained on this side. You don't need to varnish this part if you wish. It really is up to you. But the most important thing what I did with this design is at the end of these I left a 4 centimeter gap between the edge of this wood to the end of this. So now we've finished our telescope rack, and I'm going to show you how it works. All right, this is why I've made this. So to operate it, all you do is you clip on the legs like so. Okay, they will lock in place. Then all I do is I slide it out. You notice that audible, like that noise. That is basically those Teflon pads that have dropped. That indicates that is the correct extension. All right, I don't want to go any much further than that. And like I say, it's still pretty secure. As you can see, it's not going to go anywhere. Now the beauty of this design is it's simple, very effective, and now I can lift the telescope out of its cradle, and then I can take the telescope to my observatory. It really is so simple. All right, and again I can just grab everything all together and take it away. So the problem with this design, it's not 100% foolproof. As you can see with those Teflon pads that have dropped, okay, if I want to push it back, I have to lever the tray slightly in a bit more, okay? So it's a bit of a, it's not so great, but the concept, it's easy for me to use. So I have to lift it up, push it back in a bit, and then once I finish observing or imaging, I can then place the telescope back into its position like so. Right, put everything together, and then once I've lifted all those Teflon pads, I basically push the telescope back in like so, and then I can collapse the legs in like so, and there you go. So as you can see, fantastic job. It really is very simple to do. It does make it easier, so I can slide the telescope in and out, I'm also, if I'm dragging it out the normal way, it's just going to rub the telescope tube. It may knock the guide scope and the other accessories in there, and I don't want to misalign my guide scope or any of my finder scopes and all that. So everything's completely secured in its cradle. It's going nowhere. All right, very secure. And the beauty of this design is, like I say, it really is very secure. And the beauty of this design is, like, if I'm having the telescope set up, say like I want to take dark frames or flat frames, all right, I can always have this supported in there, and with the telescope focuser, you know, not being touching, or with the telescope focuser not touching onto the ground, or it's not going to affect the focus, I can take dark frames and flat frames in there. Also, it's a great way to, if your mirrors have got moisture inside the tube, all right, you can have this supported in there to allow all the dew and the frost to evaporate. All right, so it really does pay itself. All right, it really is quite a simple modification to do. So with that project I just made, I'm going to show you how you can use it for something else. Now, as you can see here, I've got the telescope mounted at the back of my car, and I must admit it is well secured. Now bear in mind, to make it even extra secure, I would recommend if you can put Velcro pads, right, so those Velcro pads can stick onto at the boot of the car, okay, and that will help it a lot more. Okay, it's not going to move about, as I can show you. Like, it's quite difficult to move that about because of the weight of all the accessories and all that. But as you can see there, it fits nice and perfectly. It's a good little project. Highly recommend that you do it, and it's another way to mount your telescope safely, right? And obviously here I've got plenty of room to put my mount and everything else in there if I want to go and take the telescope to a remote site. But as you can see there, it's not bad at all. Well, guys and girls, what do you reckon to that little project? I must admit, very simple to make. Doesn't cost a lot of money to make it. Again, all the products that I've shown in this video are in the description below. Please check out those links. However, please use those links to help you make your own telescope, shelf, rack, whatever it is that I've designed. And I must admit, the cradle can be utilized for other things, as well as just use it as part of the shelving, and you could take it with you to a remote dark sky site, for example. So yes, it does make things easier. I can now save my back in the process whilst I'm getting the telescope out. I don't need to worry about banging the telescope against anything. Plus I can have the whole setup together without disassembling guide scopes and cameras and all that. I can take the whole setup in the wanner, put it straight on the telescope. I can put it straight onto the telescope mount with no hassle. I can be connected straight away and save myself an ample amount of time. I mean, come on, you think about it, guys and girls. You saved yourself a good 30, maybe an hour's work by keeping everything together, put it straight on the mount. All you had to do was just connect a few cables, power cables in there, and then you do your go-to system on your mount, and that's it. You save yourself tons of time. That's more time, particularly when you've got intermittent weather and skies. You cannot miss that precious time. All right, some people have good skies, but for us, like myself, we have very limited skies. So every second or every minute counts. So I want to get everything ready to go, and I'm taking those pictures, taking those light frames. All right, very, very crucial. So again, please feel free to undertake this project yourself. It's another way to utilize something, protect your equipment. And again, if you like watching my video, please hit a like button. Also, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe onto my channel. And also, do not forget to hit the bell. By hitting that bell will keep you notified for any new videos that I publish out very, very soon. To that on, thanks again, thanks for watching, and I wish you all clear skies.